Right, welcome to this Friday's webinar, TGIF, happy Friday. It's always nice to talk about, getting money and having dollar bills on your screen on a Friday, right? Well, we are here to talk about getting OPM, other people's money. This is our third webinar in a three-part series for getting vendors to pay for your marketing. Welcome back to those of you who have been on at least one, if not two of those. I know we have most people who've kind of been joining us every single month. Like I said, it's our third one that we've been doing now, to learn about how you can use MDF, marketing development funds, in order to get your vendors and your sponsors, not just to pay for your marketing. I mean, I know it's sexy and enticing to get vendors to pay for your money, but to get involved in your marketing too. Like we learned in the last session, there are a ton of ways that your sponsors can get involved in your marketing. And yes, money is part of it. Yes, that's a very enticing piece of it. But we found out ways, even as far as like, your sponsors and your vendors, paying or coming onto your webinars and doing your presentation for you, getting on your sales presentations, training up your sales team, coming to your events. So yes, we're talking about other people's money. We're talking about market development funds and how can you get those funds and get access to those buckets of money that are out there. But as we've been learning, it's more than money too. Your sponsors and your vendors are wanting to support you in your marketing so that everybody wins and we can make some more sales. So we've been talking over these few sessions about MDF, and I just want to reiterate again that it's out there. Free money, MDF, marketing development funds, free money for marketing is out there and it's waiting for you to spend it. We've learned in these past few sessions that a lot of the sponsors and the vendors have buckets of money that they want to give to their partners in order to do more marketing so that you can sell more. So free money for marketing is out there and it's waiting for you to spend it. Today, we're going to be talking about some action steps for how to actually get that money. So before we get started though, if this is your first time joining us, you can always go back and watch the first two. I highly recommend it. We had a panel on our first session of sponsors talking about the best ways to get access to that money. The second session, we had a panel of MSPs, your peers, talking about ways that they had used that money. Like I said, today we're saying, hey, how do we take action and actually put that money into your bank account and into your hands? But who are your presenters today? So my name is Allison Felber. I'm the VP of Big Red Media here at Technology Marketing Toolkit. And I've been involved with Robin. I've been involved in the MSP community for almost 15 years now, but I've been at Team Robin and TMT for about 7 years. Many of you may know me. I used to run our Done For You services, even our Keep or Infusionsoft back in the day. For those of you who are my OGs, ran our marketing automation department and even done marketing for Robin. Now at Big Red Media here, I get to be very involved in a lot of the authority marketing that we do for you, and the MSP Success magazine as well. So like I said, it's been almost 15 years. I'm keeping it under that 15-year mark for now. I don't want to date myself, but I've been doing marketing specifically in the MSP and IT space for a while. And so I really understand, what is needed, in terms of marketing as an MSP, what your difficulties are, what your challenges are. I have been a Better Your Best finalist, stood up on stage, those of you who were at boot camp a few weeks ago. I think the only marketing manager to date to stand up on stage, didn't win the car. I'm seriously considering taking this off of like my bio at the beginning of every presentation that I do, because every presentation, every webinar, I have to say, no, I didn't win the car. Or maybe I just change up how I introduce myself. But again, just to highlight, been heavily involved, in doing marketing both for an MSP when I worked for one in Southern California, and then at TMT, helping to create the marketing for you for MSPs, and then actually doing the marketing and the Done For You services with you. So it's in my blood. It's in my nightmares and in my dreams. It's just a part of who I am. I can't get it out of my brain. But that is me and who I am. And then I also have Tanya Gentry on here as well, our Chief Sales Officer at Big Red Media. As Robin likes to say, our top salesperson at TMT, and she doesn't just like to say it, it's fact, it's the truth. You can see on there, she's actually sold over 12 million in sponsorship, for TMT and Big Red Media. So when it comes to working with the sponsors and working with the vendors, She is a guru, a wealth of knowledge. We are very privileged to have her on these webinars here with us to talk about ways to work with the sponsors, because she's very passionate. As once she's doing the bulk of the presenting today, because she's the one who's working with our sponsors and kind of helping you guys get access to these funds and these resources. But she's very passionate about helping to bridge the gap in between what the sponsors and the vendors have available to them for resources and you as the MSP, because there is a disconnect and there hasn't really been a clear path in between the two, or it's hard to find that path. And so this MDF guide, these MDF webinars are the brainchild of Tanya, because she truly is passionate about connecting those two groups together, getting you connected with the right sponsors and the right vendors who can not just give you money for MDF, but help you actually grow your business and vice versa. So we're hanging out with you guys again for our third and final session in this MDR, and all these acronyms that you guys have, these MDF webinars, Marketing Development Funds. And today, like I said, we are taking action. We are going to be going through, Tanya's going to lead you through, how do you actually put a plan together to get that MDF and to get that money in your bank account. So with that being said, right before I bring on Tanya, a couple housekeeping things. Yes, we're recording this. I hate that I even have to say that on webinars every time anymore, but I always get at least one person who says, are you guys recording this? Yes, we're recording it. Yes, you'll have access to the recording. As far as questions go, we've got our chat box, which is a great place to just communicate with each other. I see Wayne's already drinking. Hey, Wayne, great to see you again. He was on our panel the last time across the pond over in London, I think, right, Wayne? Drinking a beer. So if you've got anything you want to just communicate throughout the chat, go ahead and put it in there. Thanks, Carly, for putting the link to the last two webinars in there if you missed the last two. Go ahead and type into the chat just so you guys get used to being engaged and hanging out and paying attention. Put into the chat if you were on either one of the webinars that we've done before for MDF, either the first one or the second one. And if you're feeling extra ambitious this Friday, or you already have a buzz and your inhibitions are down, Wayne, go ahead and let us know, like, what was one takeaway that you got from either one of those webinars. Maybe it was an idea of what another MSP did. On our first panel with our sponsors, I know there was a ton of people who, wanted to connect with those sponsors. I didn't even know you could do that for me. I didn't even know you had that bucket of money. I didn't know you could do that. So type in there if you were on, either one of the webinars, and if you want extra credit points, one of the key things that you took away from it. So we're excited to have our repeats on here. Welcome to our newbies. And thanks, Carly, for putting up the links for those previous ones before then. If you have questions specifically about content, Tanya and I specifically reserved a good amount of time at the end of this webinar today to answer questions. Like I said, you have access to our sponsorship guru, Tanya, right here on the line. Take advantage of that. Type your questions into the Q&A if you want to make sure that it's a question that we answer. I don't want it to get lost in chat because there'll be a lot of chatter back and forth. If there's a question you specifically have for myself or Tanya on anything MDF related, it doesn't have to be about creating a plan that we cover today. Anything MDF related, go ahead and type it into the Q&A. We've got time reserved at the end. Any questions that you have, put them in there. Again, you've got access to Tanya and access to myself. So, Tanya, are you ready to get going? Let's talk about putting a plan together.
I am. And one of the things I want to do for anybody that is new that hasn't been on the first two or wasn't in our sessions that we did at boot camp is let's recap a couple of the things. What are some key pieces that we learned and why people aren't using MDF? So first one, I've used this in every slide. I think we've used it from the beginning. It is a stat that we learned when we were putting this together that 60% of some of the vendors' budgets goes unused, that they're putting out for MDF every quarter. That was astounding to me, and I couldn't understand why. If this money's out there, why are MSPs not using it? Why are they not getting this money, and why are the vendors not, running out of money? And they will, some of them will. So it's not all of them, but there is a large majority that can be going unused. So just again, to recap this, why aren't MSPs using it? Well, they don't know about it. Well, again, you guys all do now. If you haven't been on the first 2 webinars, then definitely go back and watch those. We talk through, some of that, like, why you don't know about it, and really just educating you on how to find that out. The second reason is they don't know how to get it. We've done the Ultimate MDF Guide. Like Allison said, it is a passion of mine. When we started talking and working on a couple of the different programs that Big Red Media brings to the TMT community, we realized that there's MDF out there, but lots of MSPs don't know how to get it. So that's why we did start the guide with that. And then the final reason is you know about it, you know how to get it, but you don't have the time or the resources to do that. So today we're really going to go into the plan. That is the backbone on how you start to really get this MDF from the vendors. And we want to make it as easy as possible for you. So we've gone out and talked to some of the top vendors that have some great MDF programs, great partner programs, and we've asked them, what do you need? What is it that if someone came to you, what would give you that ability to say yes instead of no to them? So that's what we're going to go through a little bit more in detail today. So hope that works for you. Again, the Ultimate MDF Guide, we'll put up a link, I think, at the end. If not, it's just mspsuccessmagazine.com/MDF guide, and you'll be able to download it right there. We'll give you, again, I think at the end, we'll throw it in chat at least so you guys have it. But get this access. I was in Las Vegas this week for Connect IT. We were one of the sponsors there, and I got to speak to a lot of vendors that aren't even in the guide right now. You can see these are the ones that we've got actively that have already given us a lot of the information. We got to change a couple of these, quick fast change to CyberQP. So talk to them, especially even just about their MDF program and what people need to be doing for it. So we're going to have a lot more that are going to be popping in here than what we've got on the board. So definitely make sure that you download that guide and bookmark it. We'll let you know when we're doing a big release of it, but we will be adding to it on a monthly basis. So again, recap what you've already learned. You've got to have a plan. When you're at the starting point to get MDF, you need to have a plan of what you want to do. Just to go to the vendor and say, hey, I'd like some free money, I might be doing something, they're going to say no. So have a plan. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but it does give you that overall what you're trying to accomplish, right? And one of the key components of that is that it has to be mutually beneficial. I want to repeat this. It has to be mutually beneficial. It has to be a benefit for you, but it also has to be a benefit for the vendor. They want to give you this money, but they are doing it because they want you to sell more of their products or solutions. They want you to grow your business because you will be selling more of their products and solutions. You'll be using more of their products and solutions. So it needs to be mutually beneficial. And at the beginning, it will probably be mutually beneficial even through the funds. They're going to want to see how much you're putting into it as well. So just keep that in mind. We also learned, this is a stat from Datto. This isn't a new stat that came out this year. It's something that they've talked about for years. Every dollar they give you in MDF, they get a 300 to 400% ROI out of that. That speaks to why it's so important to vendors to give you this money. But it also speaks to why you need to be successful in what you're doing. So when you're putting the plan together, what are some of the pieces that are going to make you successful with it? We'll talk about that, because the more success you see, the more money they're going to give you at the end. And I love this slide. It's just a fun slide. When we did the other two webinars in this 3-part series, the vendor said ask, and the MSP said ask. If you don't know where to start, if you don't know what to do, ask your vendors, ask your MSP peers, ask us. Hey, I'm thinking of doing something. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what kind of success I'll have from it. Ask. That's a big piece of it. So you want their money. Again, you want to ask for it. Even before, and I would tell you, even if you've got the best plan out there, you're going to have the best webinar, you're going to do one of our small biz tech day or the trust-based marketing pieces that we're offering, for the MSPs to be part of, or you're going to do a lunch and learn or something like that. even before that, start having that relationship with your vendors. If you don't have a relationship with them right now, this is a good time for you to start talking to them about it. Tell them that you're starting to think about doing something. Ask them what they've seen others be successful with. What are they willing to give money? And we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the front end with the Ultimate MDF Guide. We're getting some of those answers for you. But there's a lot of vendors out there that even if they don't have let's say they don't even really have an MDF program, they still typically have some money to give you. So go to them and talk to them about, like, what if I was to do something, what have you seen, people being successful with? And don't be alarmed, because they're going to tell you, like, hey, we're going to need some information, or I'm going to go through what you're going to actually want to give them, because they want to know, what you're doing, what's your follow-up, how are you doing it, because they want you to be successful with it. I use this example in my breakout session with Darren Petoni, who's one of our client coaches. He did 3 events. He decided he was going to do 3 events in a relatively small amount of time. He wanted to do a breakfast. It was a luncheon or breakfast and learn instead of a lunch and learn. Then the next month he decided to do a happy hour. So this one was a little bit more informal. He wanted to be able to have more conversations with his attendees with it. And then he did a golf tournament. He was one of those hole sponsors. So it was just one hole. He didn't have to do the whole golf tournament. And from that, he used MDF to pay for it. He got those 90 raw leads. He got 60 first or qualified leads, 35 first-time appointments, and 12 new clients that resulted in over 36,000 in MRR. Over a 3-year period, that was $1.3 million that he, added to his revenue. Again, that doesn't just happen. You don't just start in and go, hey, I've got an event, I'm going to show up, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be rich. But because he did have a plan, and he had the plan for how to get people there, and then he had the plan for the follow-up, but the vendors were giving him money. And every time he did it, from the breakfast and learn to the cocktail hour to the golf tournament, he got a little bit more and a little bit more. Allison, this is something that we won't say it's 15 years, it's below 15 years.
Under 15.
You've been doing this a long time, and you've seen, I know when I was doing interviews, you were one of the first people I talked to, because you used MDF a lot in your previous position. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the other ideas that you can think of other than, what Darren did here?
Yeah, I think it's easy to default immediately to events. I think that's the easiest thing that a lot of the vendors and sponsors can show a direct ROI from, and they have experience doing that. And so it's easy to fall into the bucket of like, oh, I have to do some sort of an event, or I have to do, some sort of golf tournament or something like that in order to get MDF. But that's not true. Like we learned on our last webinar with the MSPs, and even on the first one too, with our sponsors, it doesn't have to be an event. And so once I started to think about like, okay, what else might my sponsors and my vendors be able to get involved in? I kind of had like an aha moment, like this baby on the screen here, like, oh my gosh, like I could get my vendors involved this way. I could get my vendors involved that way. And so what I used to do back when I was the director of marketing for the MSP is I would put together, what would my ideal annual plan for marketing look like? And then what does that look like by quarter and by month? Like if I had a bottomless pit of money, what would I want to do? And so when I went to my vendors and had that very first conversation, that ask, that slide that Tanya has that says just ask, when I would have that ask conversation, I would say, these are all the things that I really want to do this year. How do you want to get involved? Like, how can I involve you? So maybe there were events on there. As we know, events take a lot of lift. It takes a lot of resources to put on an event. It's not just something you decide you're going to do. And so you may not be at the point where you're able to take on putting on an event. So think about what are you currently doing right now in your marketing that you can take to that ask conversation, and what would you want to do if you had money that you can take that to that ask conversation. We learned one of the things that I did, and I think I talked about this on the last one, was I was sending out, a monthly newsletter. And it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was money that I was paying for printing and shipping every single month for this newsletter. Well, I went to my vendors and I said, hey, I've got a little spot that I can put an ad in here for you. Now think about, again, that win-win that Tanya talked about. We think about the handshake and make it a win for everybody. So I wouldn't go to a vendor who was channel only and channel exclusive. I went to, a vendor who also sold, direct to consumer, because they would be the ones who would want their ad in my newsletter that went out to, it was actually law firms that went out to law firms. And so I was able to get not 100%, but most of my newsletter costs covered, because I sold, a little ad in my newsletter for one of the vendors. And I was able to show them, this is how many we mail out, every single month. And so that it's reaching X number of eyeballs. And so it doesn't always have to be events. Think about things that you might want to do. I mentioned at the beginning, even if you're doing a virtual event, like a webinar, not quite as much lift as an in-person event. I know it still takes some planning, but maybe you don't want to be the one presenting. Can you get your vendor involved, to do the presenting? Maybe you pay to send out a little piece of direct mail ahead of time to get people to register, and maybe you put the vendor's logo on that and they cover the costs for it. So be thinking about, again, what am I currently doing that vendors or sponsors may want to get involved in? And what would I want to do if I had a bottomless bucket of money? And what might they want to get involved in? And take those ideas to that ask meeting. I know some vendors are very specific, like we won't cover, for digital ad spend, but there may be some vendors who would, cover some digital ad spend. And so be thinking of what are some things that I might want to do. Tanya mentioned, some of the authority marketing pieces that we do here at TMT. Is that something that they may want to get involved in? I put in the chat, I think it might have been Paul who put some sort of quote similar to this, you don't get what you don't ask for. And so just taking your plan to them and saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do. Can we think about how you might be able to get involved to where it is a win for you? So really thinking about what are all of the things that I am doing and that I want to do, and let's have that ask conversation.
Awesome. So let's start talking about the basic items that you're going to need in your plan. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And what do you want to achieve? Really, again, what's your anticipated MRR? So when we're getting into this, I think it's really important to think about that when you're starting to put your plan in place. Just like Allison said, look at what you're already doing. Look to see if there's something that you can now get the vendor involved in, and it would make sense for them to be involved in. And what will the end goal be? One of the things I actually, again, just got back from Vegas and was talking to quite a few vendors about this. And the one thing that came up when I was talking to them about, okay, how do they get money from you? If you're not in my guide right now, you're still just filling out that form. How do they really get money from you? And one of the things that came over and over again was you've got to have SMART goals. They've got to be achievable goals. Again, we go back to, again, that handshake, but that mutually beneficial. Each vendor has a little bit of a different criteria of what you can get the money for, what you can use the money for, how much money they'll give you. But the common piece between all of them is that if they're going to give you this money, they're doing it because they want you to be successful, because your success means you'll be selling more of their products and services, or that you'll be using more of their products and services. Think of that when you're putting your plan together. Okay, what am I going to do that's going to help this vendor be more successful, or see that they saw success when they're done with it? And there's really 4 parts to the plan. So for anybody that's that's getting us coaching them throughout the next couple of months on Small Biz Tech Day or Trust Base, no, this is exactly what we're doing. We're putting this plan together for you. But this is because we've done the research to know exactly what the vendors are looking for. So the first part is all about you. So the first part is just going to be details on you. What's your relationship with them? They maybe ask like what type of products that you're using from them. Don't be alarmed with that. They may not know that off the top of your head, and you want to make this as simple. You want to get the yes at this. So put as much detail as you can in here. How many employees you have, how many endpoints that you're servicing, what's your revenue. Don't be afraid to put all of that information right here, because the more they know about you, the easier it's going to be for that yes at the end. The second part to it is, okay, what's the event? I use event, but what's the piece that you're doing, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a lunch and learn, a breakfast and learn, a small biz tech day. What exactly is this that you're asking them for? And this is key because I would say the large majority of the vendors have MDF based on quarterly basis and based on your quote event that you're doing. So they may say there's an amount that they'll give you for that event. And then if you do something else throughout the year, they may give you more. So think of it in that instance that it's not just a one and done typically for the year. But when we're going into the event, and again, use events freely as far as like what that actually means, but describe what you're wanting to do. When is it that you're going to do it? If in that instance it is a newsletter, how often do you publish it? Where is it going? What are the details? And then really like what kind of resources are you going to need from the vendor outside of money? Maybe you want them to send some different swag. We talk about that a little bit, or you want them to get involved with it. You'd be surprised if you don't know this, when we talked about before, you got to be in your partner program, really look to see what you get from your partner program with each one of the vendors. There's probably a lot of things in there that you may not even know that you were entitled to get or that they want you to get. They would, just like Allison said, they may give you the webinar, they may present on your behalf, they may fly somebody in. DataStream was talking about how they were flying all over the country doing presentations with their partners and giving them money to do the events that they were doing. So there's a lot of different assets that you can get from your vendors. So you just need to let them know what you're looking for. What's your target attendee? So again, what is it that you're trying, who are you trying to reach? How often are you going to reach them? Obviously, what's the amount that you're going to be requesting from MDF? And if you're requesting MDF from another vendor, if so, who? They're okay typically if you're getting MDF from a non-competitor and they're giving MDF as well. So think of it in that way. They're open to you getting more money from that, especially if they're not going to cover the entire piece that you're doing. They're happy that you're getting more. It's good for them to know it may be one of their good partners too, and they can even come up with some more ideas for you. The third part to your plan was going to be what will be your results. So if you don't know here, maybe it's the first time you're doing it, you're like, I don't really know, we'll go back to that word ask. Look at the members only queue. There's, lots of different people put out there of what their success has been. You can see examples inside the toolkit. You can ask your peers. If you haven't done this before, it's okay for you to be conservative. Giving a lower number but an attainable number is a good thing. They're not going to say no to you just because you feel like you're only going to get 1 or 2 new clients of this, or maybe you're upselling your current clients. So it's not as much new MRR that you're getting. That's okay. They just want to know what it is. You're going to look at your results 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months out. So there's some key pieces of it. Most of them, I'll tell you, we're going to say that 90 to 6 months out. Those are the 2 parameters they're going to put around it. But I think if you have a plan that says, hey, I'm going to give you results in 30 days. I'm going to keep you in constant contact with what I'm doing for my follow-up. This is exactly what they're looking for. And then they're going to want to know, how are you following up? So post events, are you going to email? Are you doing the phone, social media tagging? And then what's your plan again? People tell me all the time that when we did this at boot camp, I've never done anything. So I don't even know what to look at. How do I look at it? It's super simple. Go inside your toolkit. If you don't have it, let us know. We'll get you in touch with someone that can talk to you about what we can do to help you with that. But you can see inside there's a webinar campaign. Super simple. You can go in there and look at it. It tells you everything to do. It's even got the keep diagram out there that I can't read, that Allison probably created. But it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to get people to your webinar. And then you can use the hot lead follow-up that's also in the toolkit. So you've got a lot of the tools that already tell you how to do it. You just need to put it all together and get it in a plan for the vendor. And this is really the important piece of it. I know, Allison, you put a lot of these things together for MSPs. How do they, find some of these pieces?
Yeah, so Tanya mentioned, if you're in one of our programs, you have MAP, or, part of the toolkit, you've got kind of the campaign outlined, like this is exactly what you do for follow-up. But actually, you know what, Tanya, if you don't mind, I'm gonna snag the screen.
Go for it.
Sorry, I didn't tell you I was gonna steal it, but I think it would be helpful, let me bring this up and share this with you guys, see how the sausage is made, sneak peek behind the curtain. This is an example of a flow chart for a webinar. If you have MAP, then this should be familiar to you, but I know not everybody on this webinar has this. But this is an example of everything, every touch point that goes into, this happens to be a webinar. And so as you're starting to think about what am I going to be doing for my marketing, what am I going to be doing to promote it, what am I going to be doing to follow up, like if you were able to provide something like this to your sponsors, like this outlines exactly to them, not only what you're going to be doing, but it shows them I'm serious about this. Let's see, share the screen. I am sharing. Let me try again.
Please stop sharing then. There you go. Does that look better for everybody?
Let's see. Got it. Clint says got it. Okay. Imagine if you took this, to your sponsors and said, this is everything that I'm doing for my webinar. And I'll zoom in here in a minute. I know everyone's gonna be like, I can't read it. You're gonna make me put my readers on. But it outlines exactly what you're doing to promote it and then exactly what you're doing to follow up. And so not only does it show the sponsor that I've thought this through very well, this is very strategic. This isn't something that's just like a fly by night. It shows that you are very serious about what you're doing. And, talk about, impressing a sponsor or impressing a vendor saying, hey, I've got my stuff together. I'm serious about this. They're going to take you a little bit more seriously too. So, in this right here, we're outlining if you're doing a webinar, as soon as you say you want to do the webinar, we've got, 4 to 5 different emails, that go out inviting someone to attend this webinar. So you can show your sponsor, we're doing email promotion. I would actually layer onto this as well, social media posts. If you want to be aggressive, you could do social media ads. You could do a direct mail piece, inviting someone to a webinar. I know I did one back when I was at the MSP. I did a summer webinar series. And I sent people little popcorn bags in the mail that says, pop this before, you virtually attend our next webinar. And I don't remember the numbers because I'm dating myself again, probably 11 or 12 years ago, but it was my most highly attended webinar because I sent them something in the mail ahead of time that got them excited, that piqued their interest, that got them to register. So we're sending, promotion, before we register for a webinar. Then you can show what happens afterwards, all the phone calls that need to happen, all the emails that happen, everything that you're doing. If I zoom back out again, you can see that the bulk of this campaign is like everything that happens after the quote unquote event, whether it's a webinar, whether it's an in-person event, whether it's a, mailer that you put out, whether it's a campaign you put out, like really driving home that point back to Tanya's slides of like, what are you going to do after the quote unquote event or the marketing campaign to make sure that you're squeezing the most juice out of it. So I know we took a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate the importance of planning and the importance of thinking about what your follow-up is going to be. Not only just in getting MDF, yes, it will help you to get MDF, and yes, your sponsors and your partners want to be able to see this 4-part plan, but it's going to help you be better prepared to actually implement the campaign. If you put, the thought into it and the intention into it at the beginning to really think through this, what are my goals? What am I going to be doing and what are the details around it? What are the resources that I'm going to need? If you put the thought and intention to it to plan it, the likelihood of you following up and doing the marketing and getting the results and getting the appointments and getting the sales is far higher. So even if you put this plan together and worst case scenario, your sponsor's like, I don't have any money and you can't get it funded, you've got everything ready to go for you just to hit go, to hit that button.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. And so, I think that the part, once you've got this plan in place and you're wanting to take it to the vendor, the things that the vendor is going to look at, you're going to propose your plan, right? So does it make sense? Again, mutually beneficial. You're going to apply for those funds. Take this to your sales rep. So go to your sales rep once you have the plan in place. The channel manager is usually going to be the person involved and maybe the person that actually gives the green light to the funding itself. But get your sales rep on board with you. The sales rep, account manager, they make more money when you sell more. So they're an advocate for you. And if they're not, then take it directly to the channel manager, or let us know too. But take this to them and say, here's what I've got. I've got this plan. I've put this in place. I guarantee you, because I know that this is what they're looking for. This is, if you start off with this, you're going to be more organized than probably 90% of the MSPs that come to them and ask them for money. So if you can take this to that, start with your sales rep, get them excited about it, have them be your advocate for it. And then talk about, what are you going to need again from them? So you've already told them some of the things that you might need. You might want them to present. You might want them to give you, the actual talking points to the webinar if you're doing a webinar, or, if you're getting ads from them, you're going to want them to put the ad in there and maybe help you with being a little bit more creative with some of the things that you're even putting in there. But they'll give you all these things. It's not just money. They've got lots of collateral. We've all been to those events. If any of you guys were just at our boot camp 2 weeks ago, I mean, crazy swag. So it's all over the board, the stuff that they give out, just for you to come up to the booth, let alone if they can help you get more customers.
Yeah, I think sorry to chime in, but it came up on one of our previous webinars too, kind of the use of swag. I think it was in our first one talking about vendors. And going back to the, taking your plan to that ask conversation. I feel like I keep going back to that ask conversation because, guys, that's truly where all of this will start to flow from, is just having that first conversation and asking, what do you want to be involved in? One of the vendors had even said, and, I know I used one of my vendors for this too, like they provided the giveaway for a referral campaign. I mean, we can show that referrals convert at a higher rate over cold leads. Your cost per, client for a referral is significantly lower than if you're having to go out and prospect and meet with them and sell a net new customer. And so they were able to use, a sponsor swag and sponsor MDF in order to fund a referral campaign prize for their clients. And I think I saw Hunter was on here. Hunter, I know you have taken referral campaigns and put them on crack, steroids, whatever you want to call it, with your car giveaway. But Hunter, you got MDF for that too. And so it doesn't have to be, just, hey, we'll give away a TV or we'll give away an iPad or something. I mean, Hunter's giving away cars over where he's at. So taking these ideas, to your sponsors and being like, how can I get you involved?
Yeah. And it's, when you're doing this and once you've got the plan in place, you've done this, it's even more important to some degree of what you're doing after the event. If all of you are Robin followers, she always talks about the follow-up. What's the follow-up? When someone, knocks on your door, whether it's a referral, whether it's a cold lead, whatever that you've got coming into your marketing, you've got to have the follow-up. So the sponsors want the exact same thing. The vendors need to know this. They want to know your actual numbers. So again, if you've invited and you said, I think I'm going to have 100 people at my webinar, and you wind up with 20, don't think that's bad. That's exactly probably standard inside of what they see. But they want to know that, right? That tells them, okay, where are we at? What are we actually going to be looking at now for that MRR at the end? And then to, again, give them those goals versus actual, know your numbers. So you already told them what your goals are for some of the follow-up and what you'll be doing, but now give them those actual numbers with inside of it. The more you are responding or being proactive with your vendor, it's going to be mind-blowing to them. So if you're coming back to them and say, it's been 30 days, I just wanted to give you a heads up, we've sent out this, this, and this, they're going to be like, okay, great. Because this is one of the biggest issues for them, is the follow-up. People all want their money. everybody's asking them for their money right now, right? But to know that they're actually going to see some return from you, if you've got this kind of follow-up in place, and again, you can refer back to the toolkit, find out some of the, I think it was the hot lead follow-up was one of the things, Allison, that we looked at. There's lots of different things that we teach you on how to do that. This is marketing 101. So just take some of that and make sure that you're doing it after the fact. And I want this to be something that I want you to really know about this. The first time you get money from the vendor may not be the full amount. If you're asking them for $5,000 to do a webinar or do something along those lines, they may say, hey, we don't have any experience, right? We don't, our relationship's new, or you've never asked before, or this is outside of the scope of what we normally do. They may not give you that full amount. And that's okay. If they say, I don't have 5,000, go back and say, what do you have? Can you give me 1,000 for that? Can you give me 2,000 for that? Can you give me 500 for it? Don't be afraid to go back, even if they say no the first time, to say, okay, well, what could you do? What is something, would it be a ridiculous idea for you to give me, $1,000 of that instead? And don't be discouraged by it. This is your first time with them. So know that the first time that you're getting MDF will be probably a little bit lower than when they see that what you're doing is actually going to be successful. Typically, they are looking at a percentage of what you spend with them and all of that, but don't be afraid to go back to your vendors and say, hey, I know I'm relatively new to you, or I'm just coming on with you. I'm passionate about this. I want to do this. Here's my plan again. And it's very, it's more detailed than probably what they see, but it answers and checks all the boxes that they need. They may give you money even if you don't have a great relationship with them right now, or you're just now starting. We actually had a couple of vendors on the first webinar say, hey, if you're thinking of coming over and you have, a good plan in place and you know what you're going to do, or you don't have a good plan, but you're going to use us throughout the entire piece, I'm probably going to give you some MDF. Again, it's just a matter of going out there, and we use that over and over again, but it is about asking. And there's a lot of vendors inside of your stack. There's a lot of vendors that you work with. So, write all of those out and see which ones make sense. If one says no, go to the next one and just keep asking, because the great part about it is, though they may not have given you a lot of the money at the beginning, the next time you do this, the next quarter you do this, the next event that you do, the next marketing, item that you're putting in place, you're going to get a lot more money for that, most likely. So, the more successful you are, the more successful they are. That's really, truly what it's coming down to. And so again, I want to make sure we have enough time. We did put out here, again, I love this slide. It was one that Dave Brindle actually helped me find. We talk about it, but ask, make sure you're doing that. And that there is, again, the free money's out there. Want to make sure that you have access to the guide. So I'm going to keep this up in case that you have it. But Allison, do we have any questions out there that we need to answer right now? We've got about
Yep. I've got a couple that I've been saving. And again, if you guys have any questions about MDF, about working with your sponsors or your vendors, you need ideas for, how you can use MDF. You have questions about something that, ideas that we came up from here, anything from past webinars, go ahead and type it into the Q&A. We've got some time reserved for that, but I do have a couple questions that came up. So towards the beginning, Lincoln, I know it was, right at the beginning of the webinar, I was like, I'll come back to your question here. Lincoln had asked, my company provides structure, cabling, and CCTV installation. Can we get that money for advertising? So Lincoln, go ahead and let me know what you mean by are you doing digital ads or print ads, or are you selling ads in your newsletter? So give me a little bit more, context into advertising. But, Tanya, if you want to talk about maybe someone who's not a traditional MSP and some ideas you have for Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would go through and I would write out every vendor that you work with. And start with that piece of it. Okay, who is someone that I'm using? Who is it that I'm reselling? What product am I using to be, that my customers are going to use? And start from there. So From there, I would then go, if they're not in our MDF guide, which they probably aren't right now, I would go through each one of them. I'd go through my sales rep and say, listen, what kind of resources, what kind of budget do you have typically to help me grow my business in order to help grow, our relationship? From there, they'll give you some ideas, or they'll say, we don't do that. But a lot of them will still say, you know what, we can actually give you up to $500 for this, or we can give you $1,000 for that. You can go in and look at, again, I would go to each one of them. But I would look at it this way. One of the examples that I got from one of the vendors was, think of what if one of your customers, as an MSP or a non-traditional MSP, if your customer is coming to you and say, hey, I want you to be part of this event, I think you'll get some business out of it. And it's one of your top customers. It's one that when you call them, they engage with you. They may not be the biggest spender for you, but they're engaged with you and they're a good partner of yours. You're going to think about it, right? Because you've got a good relationship with them. You've cultivated that relationship. So you start to think about what that looks like. If there's another client that comes up that every time you call them, they're like, oh, here's this MSP again, or this non-traditional MSP. Here's this person calling me again. And it's just, and they don't give you the time of day. And now they come back to you and say, hey, I would like some money from you to do this. You might get some business, you might not really sure. And you're probably not going to give them money. So think of that when you're starting to cultivate these relationships with your vendors. It may not be today that you get it, especially if it's not a traditional piece for them to give you, but the more relationship that you build with them, the more likely they're going to give you some money. Wayne, who's on, I think Wayne's on here. Yeah, he's drinking already. Wayne talked about that. Like when your vendors call you, pick up and talk to them. You want a relationship with them, and it'll help you. You'll be able to tell them what you like, what you don't like, but then also too, when it comes down for you to ask for some of their money, they're going to be more inclined to give it, even if they don't have a traditional MDF program.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Another question I had here earlier from Kristen, let me scroll up and find it. Here we are. We're signed up for Tech Day, Small Business Tech Day with TMT. I'm wondering if the vendors will give less to each company based on the number of people requesting money. What do you have to say to that, Tanya?
But it's a likelihood, but I don't know of that. You can go through the guide. That's going to be a piece of it. One of the trainings that we're doing with, I think even we start next week with the sponsor on the MDF side for that piece specifically of Small Biz Tech Day. They're still going to be based in it on your relationship with them too. So I know last year, as an example, we had secured some of it up front. And people were able to go back because they had a stronger relationship with Datto and they got more money from Datto. So don't be scared to think that they're going to give you a smaller amount. And they're going to, it's going to be, again, based on your relationship with them, but also too, you've got other people inside that stack. That actual event's going to be a little bit different because you will be able to have competing vendors be part of it. That's the one thing that I'll talk to you about next week, but don't be scared about that. You may need to ask 2 or 3 instead of just 1. And that's what we're going to talk about as far as, some of the training that we go through next week with it.
Yeah. And remember that stat that you showed at the beginning too. What was it? 60%, Tanya, of MDF goes unused. So, there's a big bucket of money there. And so, yes, it could run out. Historically, traditionally, it has not run out. And so the money is there, 60% goes unused. And, taking that back to your vendors, what was the other stat we saw? 400%. Datto sees a 400% ROI on dollars that they put in as MDF with their partners. So I wouldn't go into it with this scarcity mindset. It's definitely not scarce. Don't go into it with scarcity. Come in thinking abundance because it's there. Okay.
I've already talked to a lot of them. They're expecting it.
Yeah, they're ready. They're ready. Okay, next question here from Michael. Is it common for vendors to provide MDF to cover larger prizes like iPads, Apple Watches, prepaid gift cards, something along those lines?
I love it. Yeah, it's easier for them to write some of that off to think of it in that instance. So yes, there's going to be, a lot of times that they may not be able to give you money, but they may be able to give you like, hey, we've got a pair of, AirPods that we can give out, or we can send you a gift card, or we can send you that. I have a pretty well-known channel only company that does not have an MDF program. I won't say their name, but they, if you go to them, they actually have a certain amount of money that they can spend per, sorry, my light keeps turning off, per, you know, event that they just put on their card and they can buy something for you. So yes, definitely look at that. They may give you MDF and give you a prize too. So don't be scared to ask for that.
Okay. Like, that's cool, exclamation point. All right, Greg, I am a one-person shop, absolutely have stage fright. I'm not a good presenter to be able to do a webinar or presentation. I'm trying to move MSP to Break Fix, or to MSP from Break Fix. But I don't have the time to plan this. What do you recommend?
I mean, I would recommend, depending on who you're utilizing. I know Jason Price over at Datto is a really good friend of mine, and when we were putting this in place at the end of last year, we were talking with him and Michael DePalma, who's their channel, you know, manager, and they run the MDF program for Datto Kaseya. They were talking about the resources that they have. So, you know, not being able to plan it, that's one thing. We'll talk about that. But to actually say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, they'll give you, you know, everything that you would need for that webinar. They'll give you the presentation. They'll give you training if you want to even look at, like, okay, they'll give you a recording of how to do the presenting. Maybe you want to get to that point, but if you're not there right now, they'll do it for you. I mean, if almost any vendor, if you say, hey, I want to get you in front of my clients, I want to get you in front of my prospects, you know, this is what I'm looking to do. I want to move from Break Fix to MSP. You know, and want them to know the importance of backup and all of that. They're going to raise their hand and say, oh, okay, I'll do it. So definitely you can utilize them for that. We were talking with Cyber QP, which used to be QuickPass up until Monday when they just rebranded. But even Jimmy was talking about on there of like, hey, I don't have a list. I don't know how to do that. He's like, let us know. We'll help you. We'll do the landing page. We'll do some social media posts for you. We'll help you do a lot of that to generate the list, to generate people inside of that. They love to do this kind of stuff. And especially, you know, you've got the channel only, which they want to sell through you. So go to those people and say, I need your help. What can you help me with? And then you have the non-channel only that want to give you money and get you, you know, get in front of your clients as well, because they will do some of that piece of it for you. So don't be afraid to ask either one of them for help. I would go through again, who am I using right now? Or who do I want to use? Who have I seen at boot camp? Who have I seen at road shows? Who have I seen at wherever event that you've been? And these are the ones that I'm going to be, you know, wanting to work with, or I am working with, and go back to them and ask them. Brandis Kelly did a quick little email last year about Small Biz Tech Day, say, hey, I'm going to do this badass event and I've got different options. Do you have MDF available? It was super simple. It was that simple. That was the email, and she blasted it out to all of her vendors, and she got a lot of money back. She actually wound up with more than what she needed to pay for it. So, you know, it doesn't have to be super, you know, she had to give the plan after the place, but she was able to ask them right up front, hey, do you have anything? Can you help me with this? So, you know, don't be afraid to even send something like that out to the people that you're working with right now, or the people you're starting to work with.
Yeah, your vendors have the resources, you know, just like she was saying, Jimmy on our first webinar said, hey, we'll create the landing pages for you. Like, we'll help you. Like, you tell us what you need. We just want to be able to, yeah, get in front of your clients, your prospects, and do these events. We'll do the presentation for you. And so I know a lot of the vendors too have, you know, templates out there for presentations, or what is it? Powered services. You know, they've got different, you know, templates that you can grab. So talk to your vendors, tell them, hey, this is where I'm lacking. This is what I can't do. This is what I'm not comfortable doing. This is what I don't have the time to do. Do you have any resources to help fill those gaps? So cool. Great question, Greg. One here from John. If I was sold a higher number of licenses than I actually use, would a vendor be willing to help me with MDF to fill the licenses they sold me, even if it does not present an immediate opportunity for new revenue for them?
I mean, I would ask them. I would think, you know, if you're not using those licenses, there's still ways for them to go deeper with you. They want those licenses used, because whenever your contract or whenever that time runs out, that you're, you know, paying them for that. They may wind up going, hey, we want you to renew. We want you to grow more. So I would definitely take that back to them and say, here's my dilemma. This is where I'm at. This is what I have. I want to fill that up and more. So how can you help me with that? Again, this goes back to having that relationship with your vendor. These people should be some of your, that you should be texting them. They should be people that are in your phone that you go, hey, just saw a new client. I got to think about that. Like, you need to have that kind of relationship with your vendors. Those are the people that are getting, MDF with no problems, because they have a great relationship with them. So make sure that you're building that relationship with them, and go back and ask them, say, hey, here's where I'm at. This is what I want to do. How can you help me do that? They, like Allison said, they've got a lot of resources, and they want to help you. Trust me, they want you to grow. They want everybody to grow, because the more you grow, the more they're growing.
Yeah, we're on the same team.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll bring up a question here, and someone was messaging me direct about it, and so I'll try to relay it back here, but I think it applies to a lot of people. In terms of sometimes working with a vendor where whatever marketing you're doing is not like directly selling their product or service, it's cloaked in a package or an upgrade or, an ongoing service that you do. And so it's not like, buy more, QuickPass, or buy more, CyberStream, buy more data. Like, how do you justify the results when it isn't as blatant what you're doing in your marketing?
Yeah, I think that's when you need to have that plan in place to show exactly what it is that your end goal is going to be. It's always going to be growth, right? So you're wanting growth from whatever it is that you're doing. And so if you can show that you're going deeper with inside of your market share, going deeper with inside of, the niche that you're focusing on, what are some of the things that you're doing with that? Yes. The ROI, events are easy for them to see ROI, and those are going to be ones that's going to be easier for them to say yes to, because that's traditional and that's what they know. But if you can show them of how this is going to be beneficial for them in the long run, they're going to look at this and say, okay, well, let's start out with this. Maybe I'm not giving you the full amount, but let's do a trial with this. Let's see what this looks like, from the beginning, and get them involved in it. Get them involved with the piece of the planning of what you're doing, and say, how can you see a benefit from this? Don't be scared to ask them those questions too. Like, this isn't traditional. I know this isn't something that you would normally do. How do you see this being successful? You guys see their social media, you see them posting all the time. They're constantly wanting to get their branding out as well. They're not scared of that. So it's a matter of just helping them see what your vision is for it. And then how do you get to that point where, they're seeing some return from it? That's really what it's going to come down to. But don't be scared if it's not immediate return. They're okay with that. I think one of them, and I don't remember who it was, but was talking about, some of the pieces that they're using. They're doing a direct mail campaign, and there's no real, like, I'm going to wind up with 3 new customers from this. It was to their current clients, and it was just really reiterating their the benefit of working with them as their MSP. And they bought it because they're like, you're keeping your clients, that's helping us keep our clients. So again, they'll get creative with you too.
Perfect. Okay, well, I know we're just about at time here. I just posted a link to where you can get the last 2 sessions if you missed those, and also where the recording and the slides for today will go. In the slides is that outline of what you can swipe, those 4 steps, those 4 parts of the plan that you need to figure out. Who you are, what you're doing, I'm going to miss one, who you are, what you're doing, your expected results. What am I missing, Tanya? Oh, sorry,
Your follow-up.
Follow-up. Thank you. And your follow-up. And some things to include in that plan. Tanya, you've got a slide up here. What's next?
So bookmark the guide. Obviously, that's something that we're working with. We're growing that. We'll do probably more webinars on this, when we get more come in, but we are adding to it on a monthly basis. So make sure that you're bookmarking it and go back and look at it when you're starting to put something together. Also too, if you have a vendor that's not listed here, it may be even someone that we work with and we have great relationships with, but you know, getting the vendors sometimes to fill out a form when they're in the middle of 14, you know, major shows going on back to back, you know, they'll say, yeah, I'm going to get it to you. I'm going to get it to you. But if I go back and say, hey, you know, ABC MSP is asking me, I know you've got one. Can you put the, you know, it gives me a little bit more power to go back to them too and say, hey, well, fill this out, please. This is important for us. So if you know anybody or you've got a vendor that you would love to see in the guide, feel free to send that to us as well. And we'll use that to keep beefing this up as well.
Perfect. Okay. And Jess, I know you asked for that QR code, but you can actually go to that mspsuccessmagazine.com/MDF, or you can go to the QR, either one. And it'll get you access to that guide. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Those of our warriors who have been with us on 3 sessions now, thank you for joining us for the entirety of these 3 sessions. Feedback from you guys has been great. I know going into this, you know, our reason behind doing MDF was a lot of people don't understand what it is. Like, what does MDF even stand for? I don't even know what it is. Like, what is this money? How do I get it? What are some ways that I can use it? How do I actually get that money back into my bank account? And I hope that these 3 webinars have helped accomplish those things, because now you know what it is, you know, some ideas for how to use it, what it can be used for, and now you know how to get it. So thank you guys for attending this series with us. This will all be on demand. You guys can go back and watch it. Tanya, any final closing words from you? We've wrapped up our 3rd session here, our 3rd and final.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Again, we work with, you know, my team specifically works with the sponsors and vendors. You know, we can't twist their arm completely to get you money, but if there's issues, let us know. If there's something that you're trying to do, we're happy to look over it and say, yeah, that's not going to work, you know, too, even for that. So just, you know, make sure that you're emailing us and letting us know, again, any new vendors that you'd like to add, or if you're having any road bumps, you know, let us know. Roadblocks, not road bumps, I guess speed bumps, roadblocks, whatever. It's been a long day. I just got back from Vegas last night. So
all right. Well, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your weekend. Go get that money.
all right.
Bye.
Bye.